Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice podcast, your inside connection to outdoor legislation. From the Beltway to policy happening your way, we're covering it all. I'm your host, Fred Bird. Join us as we explore public land access, wildlife and fisheries management, Second Amendment rights, the triumphs that shape our nation, the sports we all love, and the stories that fuel our passion for the great outdoors. This is the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to this feature edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. This week, two special guests for a very timely episode as things once again in Colorado are popping off. Surprise, surprise. Dan Gates of Colorado's for Responsible Wildlife Management and Through the Gates podcast joins us, as well as International Order of Teddy Roosevelt's Luke Hilgemann joins us here later in the conversation. But right away, we're going to welcome Dan into the show. Golly days, man, I feel like we just got talking, you and I, about Colorado not too long ago, but it's been a bit. How are you?
Well, we're doing pretty good. We're staying above the curve right now, but it's like being in a tsunami in Colorado, and we don't have a lot of water right now because we had a crappy winter for snow. But it's still a political tsunami. So I just appreciate the opportunity to sit down and talk with you, Fred, and continually working on what Western Colorado and Western United States have to worry about.
So, I spoke with our colleagues out there in Colorado and got the download on it. Seemingly, this came up almost out of nowhere. The moving forward with right to hunt and fish constitutional amendment effort in Colorado. We've had a few of these efforts across the country this year, notably here in New Hampshire. It's a little bit different process, but we're seeing the sporting community and different coalitions come together to see the benefit of this. Where are we at in Colorado right now? Give us kind of the where we came from to not really talking about this to now we're full bore and trying to make this happen.
Well, it's kind of interesting too, and what the support that we've been able to garner over the course of the last several years because of our involvement on the predator hunting issues and things pertaining to um, the privileges to hunt and fish in the state of Colorado. Which, and if anybody's paid attention to what Colorado has had to deal with, going back several years on Proposition 127 and Ordinance 308, which was the commercial fur ban, sale of fur ban, which is what we're having to deal with now through the commission level. A lot of individuals always were wondering why we couldn't do anything proactive. And it's because we'd never had the ball. We were always running around trying to take the ball from somebody else and defend what somebody else was trying to turn around and take away. We were up against the wall on multiple levels for our game commission and through the ballot initiative process, the legislation that we've had to fight and we've won and defeated. And some individuals came forward that they decided they wanted to run this effort unbeknownst to us here in the state. And we found out about it when the title board was actually being engaged and the filing was made back in early March, I believe is what it was. And so they were going through legislative council and the title board with 5 or 6 iterations of the constitutional right to hunt and fish. They went through the processes, and we found out, because that's what we do, is pay attention to what's going on in multiple segments of our state government. And we weren't necessarily happy with it because, for one, we didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
For two, nobody had been contacted from our coalition efforts, and with understanding that we're the leaders on the largest sporting conservation coalition in the state, 26 organizations of all the big mothership groups and the state ones and the regional ones, and nobody knew about it. Nobody knew about it at all. Fast forward, as they were moving through the process, we started doing a little digging and making our concerns aware. And curiosity is not just as concerns, but how are you supposed to do something if nobody really knows that you're trying to do it?
Sure.
Lo and behold, Charles Whitman with Howl for Wildlife and I were having communications, as were I and a couple of other of our comrades and allies. And ultimately, I got in touch with, they reached out, Travis Thompson and Luke Hilgemann with the International Order of T. Roosevelt. And we started some initial conversations. And Luke could tell you this for himself, but I'm not going to put words in his mouth. He's too damn big for that. I don't want him to turn around and twist me into a pretzel. Uh, but I think that they did their research and investigative reporting and found out that how instrumental we were on Proposition 127 and
Right.
what we've been able to build up from a legitimate representation side of things. The boots on the ground is as Luke has mentioned, like the infantry side of the grassroots effort in Colorado. And so they asked us to participate. We looked through the channels of how to do that and what it would entail and the benefits or the repercussions or ramifications of that. And that's where we kind of ended up. And because of my involvement with the Colorado Wildlife Conservation Project and the Colorado Trappers and Predator Hunters and the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management and being in multiple levels of state government, it became more and more obvious that um, not only did we have the opportunity, but it was probably an obligatory complementary opportunity to be able to turn around and kind of, hey, somebody's helping to give us the ball.
Hmm.
We should take that ball. And when and Luke and I have talked about this, he's an old football player, and we use sports analogies a lot. But if you've got the team and the playbook and the managers and the funding to be able to turn around and build that team up, maybe you should take the opportunity if you have it. So that's what we've been able to do so far.
Yeah, I mean, now that you're in it and we're in it, you got to go all the way with it, or at least try to get there as close as you can. Um, and it's going back to 127. I mean, certainly there's been other issues, but most notably that effort and what between the state agency professionals were able to communicate, what your organization and state organizations were able to communicate, the Wildlife Council working to educate people, all this coming together and really, like you say, getting that grassroots boots on the ground, push that sucker back during that last election cycle and really communicated that if we get our stuff together and line up and have a strategy, we can beat this stuff back. Now, fast forward to where we're at, getting proactive, and that's the way to do it. This is timely, and if we got a real shot at doing this, here it is, here and now. Because if not, the commission, it sounds like you guys got some issues with your commission that has regulatory rulemaking authority. You guys are dealing with the first stuff, and I actually heard that it's crazy to me. I don't know how legally they could do it, but they're proposing to eliminate fur sales in the state. A topic for a different time, perhaps, but this essentially needs to happen to protect. And I think what's important about the language is, and this goes for every state where this isn't a thing. So 26 states out of 50 do not have this in their constitution, is it truly changes nothing. What it does is just guarantees in perpetuity the right to hunt and fish and trap or use traditional methods, guarantees a funding mechanism so that the state agencies are funded. It does not take away the authority of the state agency, the law enforcement part of the agency. It does not take away property rights of individuals. It does not authorize 24/7, 365 killing. Everything that's in place stays the same, and that's part of the storytelling on this.
Yeah, and for anybody that's paid attention to what we've had to deal with in Colorado, I mean, we just got out of a 2-day marathon meeting with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission. I just got home late last night, and the one of the reasons you look at we become CRWM has become the um, epicenter of a lot of this stuff because we're a 501(c)(4). There's not any social media forum or any platform or any commission meeting that you go that we or my name is not mentioned personally about essentially being the antichrist when it comes to animal rights activism.
Mhm.
And so not that this is about me, but the ideologies and the perspectives of these groups and how they've been able to infiltrate the legislature and the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission because of our governor and the first husband, that they are, for lack of better terms, they're hell bent on election to turn around and stop as much as what they can stop before the end of their term, which is January 12th, 2027.
Mhm.
And so with all the victories we've been able to accumulate in this atmosphere, and still while they're building up their resources and their pieces of the puzzle through the commission level, um, Commissioner Jay Touchton, who was the former animal rights attorney for Humane Society of the United States, which is now Animal Welfare, the Humane World for Animals, and then also represented the Sierra Club and Wild Earth Guardians and a variety of other organizations. I mean, he sued Colorado Parks and Wildlife and the state here on multiple levels. He's a wolf introduction mitigation attorney specialist. He was just appointed. He was just elected chair yesterday. Now he's the chair of the Parks and Wildlife Commission. Uh, out of the 9 commissioners we currently have, and I say 9 because we kicked 2 out through the confirmation process several weeks ago, forced them to resign,
Mhm.
and before the vote actually came down because they knew where they were going to lose, and the governor knew they were going to lose. But right now we have 9. We know we're going to get like Hannibal Lecter and Darth Vader for the replacement appointments. When you're being attacked at so many different levels, it's hard to play offense.
Mhm.
IOTR and the T. Roosevelt Conservation Alliance, which is the issue committee, the Colorado issue committee on this particular ballot initiative, are giving us a platform and something to rally behind between these 26 organizations that we're all part of in the coalition efforts, and to be able to codify that in the Constitution to support science-based wildlife management, the North American model of wildlife conservation, and be able to put that into where, as Luke says it, something to where it doesn't give you any more benefit than what you have right now unless somebody tries to take something away.
That's right.
And so I need to explain because people are like, "Well, now we can get bear hunting back." Well, according to you'd have to go through the legal process to be able to do
Mhm.
that. It's not like it automatically just comes. You maybe get trapping back. Well, that's a constitutional amendment in itself that banned trapping here in 1996 outside of cage traps or for human conflict and resolution. Anything that is in existence now or allowed now would still be allowed, but
Mhm.
anything that isn't would have to go through other court processes or other legal ramifications that you would have to deal with.
Which is a huge point that needs to be made and harped on. And again, coming back to our experience here in New Hampshire, one of the lies that were perpetrated and bobcat, much like Colorado 2 years ago, is a lightning rod over here. And people that were against this effort were saying, well, once they do this, they're going to automatically bring a bobcat season. Nope, that can't
No,
happen. It's got
no,
to go through its process. And to your point, the language articulates that in the amendment that what is legal and prudent now would be there. Anything else above and beyond that would have
yep.
to go through the
Yeah,
legislative.
it's not like we're gonna go out and start killing wolves.
That's
I mean,
exactly right.
you know, the reintroduction or introduction under Proposition 114, the wolf introduction, which is still in the process of going on, and it's still being fought over, and there's probably gonna be some sort of litigation or something that comes down from the federal government because of the NEPA and the 10J rules and introduction stuff for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. None of that is going to be addressed in any way, shape, or form because they're still a threatened and endangered species. And if we have a delisting of wolves nationwide, it's still not going to address anything here for wolves as far as the constitutional right to hunt and fish, because they still will be a threatened or endangered species in the state of Colorado. And so, like you say, getting rid of the misnomers, misinformation, or the claims of activists that are trying to say all they're trying to do is this. I go back and I think it was 1777 where Vermont, codified, solidified the constitutional right to hunt and fish.
Mhm.
The antis, my adversaries here keep saying, "Well, you're just trying to do something to plant your flag." Well, it actually started several hundred years ago at different levels. It's just that nobody ever thought that some of these other states would come under the attacks and the assaults that they have. And you look at the money that's been spent in this state to defend hunting, but it's been far more expensive for them to try to take away hunting
Mm.
or fishing practices, wildlife management. This here with the constitutional right to hunt and fish, if passed, will have the opportunity to solidify and codify some things to where you have something to defend in court. And I think that that's a legitimate reason to have something in place, whether it's Second Amendment, whether it's constitutional right to hunt and fish, whether it's the right to vote, free speech, whatever it is. It gives you the ability to turn around and do that. And I think this is an opportunity that sportsmen and women, not just in our state but around the country, should help out on in some capacity because it needs to be nationwide.
No doubt. 2 things there. Now I wanna get to earlier, you mentioned the makeup of the board, the commission there in Colorado, and what that currently looks like, what it potentially looks like, and the seating of obstructionists and outright hunting, trapping, fishing people. this harkens on why this is so important now, because not only are we getting it from the front and the side, you have wolves in sheep's clothing. I guess really not in sheep's clothing. They're just wolves, and people are being sat that are antithetical to the science-based management that is prescribed by North American model, by the agency, by the professionals that are hired and vetted that go through post-secondary college, all of this stuff. And you're just going to see people on that hate this, and they have the authority to tell your professionals, go pound sand, that we're going to do this anyway. And this seems to be the way some local government's going. So that in and of itself is extremely important point to drive home, that it's a 360-degree assault that's happening in Colorado right now.
Well, look what Washington's doing. Look what Oregon's doing. You see
Oh
everything
yeah.
that on the Wildlife Commission for the state of Washington. You look at Oregon's IP 28 that's
Mhm.
trying to get enough signatures for. That'll make that a sanctuary state for animals. And Luke and I have talked about this along with Travis and Charles with Howl for Wildlife. Uh, I tell you what, if things like that gain any traction, IP 28, you won't be
Mhm.
able to do pest control, you won't fish, you won't hunt, you won't trap, you won't raise cattle, you won't raise sheep, you won't collect eggs, you won't do any goats, you don't do any pigs. I mean, I don't know what the hell anybody's supposed to eat besides strawberry, kale, and I don't know, jackfruit or something. But that's a mentality of a certain segment of the population, and it's small population, but they're about to get to the point to where they get the signatures on the ballot for the
And
ballot. And that's the
that's how
same
it
thing
goes.
that they've been trying to do here and here and here and here, everywhere you go. And it's funny because the animal rights activists, what I call the extremists, are like, see, even Dan Gates does, he believes in ballot box biology because they're supporting the right to hunt and fish.
That's
Well,
nonsense.
that's not really ballot box biology because doesn't have anything to do with specific wildlife. It has to do with the practice of wildlife management, which isn't the biological side
Right.
of it. It's codifying the management side of it and enhancing the ability for the agency to provide for itself and to stay within the confines of the North American model on science-based wildlife management. You can argue about outside money, but the outside money that comes in from federal excise taxes because of money that's spent in state and how that's codified through Pittman Robertson and Dingle Johnson, we get money statewide to manage the wildlife that the antis continually benefit off of. And if we didn't
Mhm.
have a lot of that, they wouldn't have any resources to gripe about.
That's exactly.
So this helps solidify their effort to be able to make sure that they have wildlife sustainable wildlife populations that are managed in perpetuity as well. Whether they agree with it or not, they're going to be beneficiaries of the constitutional right to hunt and fish.
Completely. Another point that I wanted to make too, and I saw this happen in New Hampshire, was that the argument gets hijacked and turned into and spun into this Second Amendment issue. All of a sudden, it's about guns. It's just a
Oh yeah,
gun play. It's gun this, gun that. Like, whole stop, full stop. That's not what any of this is.
no,
Now we can't stop them from boldface lying, going to the caucuses and being like, "This is this, this is that." These awful, greasy lobbyists that will
mhm.
just lie to your face because they have zero soul. But we have to do our part to message that out, that this everything you just said, we're being redundant at this point, but it is simply to protect what we have, nothing more, nothing less, nothing changes. This isn't to get machine guns and blasting down every undulate we see or whatever. None of this exists. This is all just made up uh, disinformation. I don't even like that word. I think there needs to be a stronger word for this.
Hyperbole.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's hyperbole, but I mean, it's just lies. It's
Yeah.
blatant, bull-faced lies that, only people without a soul can just sit there and look at you straight in the face and tell you these things. It's
Well,
weird. I mean, I
and
couldn't do it.
and it's funny because you see the misinformation that's out there, and it's and they'll fix it because they're they're not as smart as what they claim to be, but they're not as dumb as what other people claim them to be. But if you look at this particular initiative, it's Initiative 302, and it's because that's the way it came out of title board. And just like what we fought on Proposition 127, it wasn't always Prop 127. And people kept saying, well, let us do these stickers and let us do these signs and we'll do these tailgate wraps and we'll do this. We were doing things on an initiative 91, which became Initiative 101, that eventually, once they clarified and got through the process, then they became Proposition 127. So we want to emphasize this is the constitutional right to hunt and fish. It will be amendment something something
Right.
once. it clears all the hurdles and stuff. So we're not telling people to vote yes on 302 because 302 will not be on the ballot. The language will be on the ballot, but we can't tell people what to turn around and vote on for a number right now. But the opposition is already coming out. And if you look at some of their social posts, vote no on 302, and this is why.
Mhm.
Well, the 302 is not on the ballot, but the lies and the fallacies and falsehoods that they're putting on why you should vote no on that are misinformation to the general voter, because I think that once people read the facts and the data and take into consideration what this actually does and how it benefits science-based wildlife management in perpetuity, they're going to make the right decision. They're going to pass this. They're going to turn around and help solidify the commission side of things, the legislative side of things, and give sportsmen and women the ability to continue to pursue game that is regulated through the public trust side of things of wildlife management, and to be able to do that for generations to come.
It's a unique opportunity. It's a unique situation you guys find yourself in because you're not having to go through the legislative process. You're signature gathering and getting this petition together, and then the people power. They're, if you get where you need to go, you're going to have this opportunity in November. So, where are we in that process, Dan? What are the next steps? What do people in Colorado need to do? And I guess nationally to make people aware of what's going on and motivate them.
Well, I think there's a couple different things, and I'm sure Luke will end up covering this. But right now, the 76 group has, which is the lead on this, and then the action committee that I mentioned, that is the T. Roosevelt Conservation Alliance. They are in the process of getting their ducks in a row, gathering signatures as we speak. There needs to be 2% of the signatures gathered from each one of the 35 Senate districts, and that's because it's a constitutional amendment. And then it'll take 55% of the vote to be able to turn around and get this across the finish line. This is not a 50 plus one like some other things.
Mm-hmm.
The tagline of this is pretty much save Colorado's heritage, and it's unique because of what we've done for Save the Hunt Colorado. Was what we've been able to turn around and carry our resources and volunteerism up over the course of the last multiple years. But the Save Colorado heritage is something that where I think people understand about how important protecting heritage and tradition actually is, but they also want to make sure that it's done appropriately and methodically, and made sure that it's done with science, and that was proven during the last election on
Right.
127. So the signatures are being gathered now. We're in the process of working with the guys with the 76 group and Luke and the action committee itself. We will be looped in probably in the next 72 to 96 hours, and all of our stuff will be generated just how they want us to do for consistent messaging. And as Luke reiterated, he wants us to be a significant participant and leader of the pack when it comes to the groundwork, the grassroots infantry side. They're not expecting us to do the Air Force attack or the guerrilla warfare attack. We're going to do similar to what we did on the 127 campaign,
Mm-hmm.
which was factual, it was definitive, it was consistent, it was collaborative, and we made sure that we included the sportsmen and women community to be ambassadors to advertise and educate the educated non-sportsman community, not the antis. If the antis want to come to this side, that's fine. But if they're so hell bent on election to ban hunting, they're not going to like any of what we've done to win or what we're trying to do to sustain this stuff. So a lot of things are going to play out in the next, I would say, 2 to 4 weeks. They've got until August 4th, I believe, to actually finish gathering the signatures. Then they have to be certified. And so they're going to be looking at for roughly around 180 to 200,000 signatures to get to the threshold of around 125,000. They get that, they'll be on the ballot. We will be helping to lead the charge on the Colorado line. And we are already doing everything we could do as far as podcasts and strategically aligning our teams and resources and our coalitions. And it's interesting to see how much enthusiasm there is, but at the same time, how much negativity there is from the opposition already. They consider this to be such a monumental threat that it's
Yeah.
just like that they're scared to death that we're going to be able to do this. And once we do, it'll solidify all the victories we've been able to accomplish and have over the course of the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, or you're cornering a rat, and when a rat's cornered, they're going to fight back viciously, and they know if this gets passed, then it kind of shuts most of their stuff down, and that's the whole point. So, here's another challenge I think we need to overcome is these midterm Off cycle elections are notorious for poor turnout, voter turnout. We get the signatures, we get on the ballot. What are we going to do as a community to continue that messaging so that when you do go to vote in Colorado as a citizen, that we get max participation? Because as you and I talked about in 24, and we've all identified, it, not only is voter participation down, but even within our own ranks of all the licensed hunters, only 20% are registered. And of that 20%, who's actually showing up?
Mhm. I think Colorado's a unique set of circumstances because everybody considers us to be a blue state because of our politics and the way that things have played out over the last 20 years. The politicians are blue. I mean, in our General Assembly, it's obvious because of our makeup, like in the House, we're at
Mm,
46 Democrats to 19 Republicans. And in the Senate, we're 23 Democrats to 12 Republicans. Um, if you look at all the major elected offices, they're all Democrat. They have been for quite some time. That's been a strategy and a plan from the Democratic Party, the caucus itself, to formulate that. But taking that into consideration, 27% of all registered voters in the state are Democrats, 23% are Republicans, and 50% are unaffiliated. Well, there's a lot of hunters, there's a lot of outdoorsmen, there's a lot of cattle ranchers, there's a lot of people that support that lifestyle, whether they do it or not. There's a hell of a lot of gun owners. And I would venture to say, based upon our facts and what we were able to accumulate before the 127 campaign, we won that by 55 to 45%. We were
mhm,
told from the supposed experts we would lose by double digits. We messaged the appropriate message, and it's worth mentioning that when we were told we were going to lose and the polls indicated we were going to lose, that we came out and we flipped that and essentially won by 10 points. At the same time, we were running and participating with Ordinance 308, which was the fur ban in the city and county of Denver. We were told we would lose that by double digits. Not only did we win, we won that by 14 points. You start mixing these things together, 57 to 43,
mhm.
55 to 45, that's not what people thought was going to happen. And when
Right.
you look at what the front range voter did, they got tired of people meddling in our wildlife. They got people tired of meddling with people's traditions and heritage. And they showed that at the polls in 2024. And I'm confident that with the right education campaign and the right involvement to skew those numbers in a favorable method and management perspective, that we can turn around and convince the uneducated that what they did in 2024 was the right thing. And this is something that they should support for their kids and their neighbors and their coworkers and their family and whoever else they know that is supportive of science-based wildlife management. The North American model is part of it, but it really gets down to the history and tradition and heritage of what sportsmen and women have provided, not just in Colorado, but the Western United States
Mhm.
and North America as a whole.
No doubt. And drives the point home. You don't get to beating 127 the way you guys did without a bipartisan effort. And these topics, these things that we're discussing are nonpartisan. You,
Yeah.
this is to assign blame or to assign labels in this. All Coloradans, like you said, benefit from science-based wildlife management. Whether you're an ecotourist taking pictures, you're just out there watching the wonderful things there are to see, or you're consuming some of it the way we do. Um, we're all benefiting from it, and no one's asking if you're Republican, Democrat, or anything in between. So this is an all hands on effort, and they're part of that messaging needs to be put out there that this all are welcome, and we want everyone to vote for this because of the science that is on the ground now, and this is good for Colorado, and it's good for the non-residents that come in and pour their hard working dollars into Colorado's economy because of all the beautiful things you guys have.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the partnerships that were created out of 127 that I believe, Luke believes, Travis believes, I think all of IOTR believes that are going to be additive to this conversation because this is not just a state issue. It is a national issue because of the implications and repercussions or ramifications if this was to not pass, or if we kept going down
Mhm,
this road of the abyss where these animal activists or extremists continually want to turn around and rewild and they want to take the opportunities,
mhm,
the privileges, and the rights away. This would codify that. If you look at the partnerships that were built, Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation was an example. You look at Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Safari Club International, Colorado Bowhunters Association, the United Houndsmen of Colorado. You just put all these groups together, Mule Deer Foundation, National Wild Turkey Federation. They saw the benefit of defending and defeating the right to be able to turn around and pursue mountain lions and bobcats back in 2024. It was not so much about the actual act of it. It was the ability for the agency to manage
Right.
that pursuit and that endeavor. And that's the same thing that this constitutional amendment continues to codify, but not just in regulation or not just in statute. It's a constitutional amendment to make sure that you want to take it away, you have to go through the right process as opposed to just trying to challenge it with a body of 6 or a body of 12 or a committee of 7. This is up to the courts to decide once the people decide to make this a constitutional amendment. And I honestly believe, Fred, that there's an opportunity to plant a flag to where other states can benefit off of Colorado's successes and say, if they did it in a blue state, which it's not, but if they did it in a blue state, why can't we do it in Arizona? Why can't we do it in Washington? Why can't we do it in New Mexico?
Yeah.
Maybe we need to turn around and plant that flag to where it's more broad reaching. And if we have 24, 25, 26 states that have this, why can't you have 34 or
Why can't
44?
we have 50?
Yeah, you
Really?
know,
I,
and so and it's not gonna happen overnight. It's not gonna
no.
happen with armchair quarterbacks. It's not gonna happen with spectators. It needs to happen with citizens. It needs to happen with sportsmen. It needs to happen with out-of-staters. It needs to happen with in-staters, NGOs. It doesn't matter whether you're an ag producer and you benefit off of hunters coming on your property, or it's a game agency that they benefit off the management opportunities from the dollar supplied by the sportsmen and women. We all have to figure out a way. What are we going to do to plant our flag, and how are we going to solidify our efforts to be able to do what we do, how we do it, and do it legally, ethically, and morally, and make it a constitutional right to hunt and fish?
Yeah, we got a great story to tell. And again, you and I have discussed this in the past. We've been challenged in communicating that story. I think we're getting better at it. And then just articulating how the whole system works, how the funding works, how it drives the science, how it pays for the science, how it's a self-feeding system. Taxpayers are not being hit with it. All of that needs to come to the 80% of the general population that just doesn't know. It's
Yep.
not their fault they don't know, but
Yep.
we can help them along. Dan, where can people find you and get more information on this effort, and how can they support?
So, two ways that you can get a hold of us through this whole campaign that we're going to reinvigorate. But the one that is the actual campaign website that we're doing on the initial stage of this for the signature gathering is savecoheritage.org. That's savecoheritage.org. Once we have everything codified in what they're actually putting out, which will be early next week, then you can turn around and also go to savethehuntcolorado.com, which is the same one that we've been running forever. We've had that for the last 10 years, and that's the one that got us through the 127 campaign. So savecoheritage.org or savethehuntcolorado.com. You'll be able to get that information, figure out where to volunteer, where to sign up, where to contribute, how to engage, what to do. And we would urge people to pay attention to this in a form to where, what do I got to do as a citizen to be engaged to help spread the word? Do I need to help gather signatures? Do I need to help turn around and do yard signs? Do I need to help message? Do I need to speak at Rotary clubs or school functions? Do I need to just talk to my churchgoers? It's up to sportsmen and women to help carry some of the burden on this and not sit on the sidelines and not be an
Yeah.
armchair quarterback and then second guess what somebody's doing. If you're going to benefit off of this as a sportsman or woman in the state of Colorado, you need to participate in some way, shape, or form. And if you don't have the time, contribute a few dollars. If
Yeah.
you don't have the dollars, give a little bit of time. Get some buddies of yours, get some other friends to be able to participate in this and help spread the word. Because if we can be victorious on November 3rd, we can turn around and codify this in perpetuity for other generations and other wildlife managers to make sure that we continue not only to save the hunt, but save the heritage to make sure we codify the constitutional right to hunt and fish.
No doubt. And we will include those links in the show notes here so everybody can just one click their way over to it, get more information. And to your point, if you don't have the bucks, if you don't have the time to walk around, the simplest thing you could do is take this program. You're obviously listening to it, share the link, Share all the podcast links that Dan goes on, that IOTR is on, that we at CSF are putting out on our socials. It costs you nothing other than 10 seconds of your time. Share that to your network of people, especially those in state, and just let them know what's going on. Like, hey, this is important to me. I think you should just take the 30 seconds, 1 minute to take a look at this or whatever the sound bites are. People will start doing their homework. At least they'll be aware and it's on their radar.
And if they don't want to sit down in front of a computer, Fred, they could turn around and follow us on the Through the Gates podcast that we do. We're going to continually do regular updates. Plus, we're giving more information on top of the commission and the legislative side of things, the petitions that are coming forward, and that also justify why we need the right to hunt and fish. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook with the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management. We are providing a plethora of opportunities for people to find out information on that, whether it's fundraising, whether it's volunteerism, or just state of the state of what we got to deal with in
Yep.
Colorado. That other states are trying to figure out how to be proactive to where when it comes to their state, they're not sitting on their laurels going, well, we should have listened to somebody 5 years ago. They're actually activated, motivated, and engaged to do something proactively immediately.
We're in this fight together, no doubt. CSF is standing ready, working with the in-state caucus members and the co-chairs that we work with, and all of our friends in-state and out-of-state, and rallying to the call. Dan, it's great to see you once again. Doing great work. God bless you, and I'll look forward to connecting to you with you here soon and get an update, and we'll just keep updating the folks and driving this sucker home.
We'll keep trying to bug you, give you guys an update, ride your coattails, and take whatever free stuff we can get because we all need to be part of the fight.
Yeah, we're all in it together. Dan, great to see you, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You bet. All right, again, my thanks to Dan for his time. Certainly a lot of information there to unpack, but between the organizations in state and what he's bringing to bear, there's a one hell of an effort. And to that end, now as we said at the top, get to welcome in Luke Hilgemann, the CEO of International Order Teddy Roosevelt. Luke, great to have you. Thanks so much for your time and making the time.
Yeah, Fred, it's great to be with you, man. Appreciate it.
Got a pretty big effort in Colorado, and as Dan and I discussed, it kind of feels like it crept up out of nowhere. I mean, there were rumblings, but it's really gained legs.
Yeah. Yeah, again, this was something that we had been tracking for a while, right? Our goal is to pass a constitutional right to hunt and fish in all 50 states if we can. And the partnership with CSF has been just incredible, right? What we've been able to accomplish in a short amount of time together, from Florida moving on to Maine and now having 12 states that are working on a constitutional right to fish and hunt. Colorado was in the mix, obviously the Western hunting kind of stratosphere that it is, but definitely now one that we had on our radar for this session, this term. But I got a phone call one day from a former colleague of mine who said, "Hey, got a donor that wanted to advance a petition effort to bring a constitutionally protected right to hunt and fish to Colorado. Would we be interested in consulting on the language?" And I said, "Of course we would." And so that's where it all started.
As we sit today, where I think I know where that language is, but tell me, I know we collaborate on this stuff, but we're in a good spot on what's been submitted.
Yeah, I think we're in a really good spot. The the way that the process works out there, they submitted three initiative petitions to the title board in Colorado. And all three of them contain kind of the key phrases and elements that we look for when we try to advance a constitutional right to hunt, including traditional methods language, right? The traditional methods shall be used, basically saying that any method that's currently used under law will be allowed. And I think that's really important. Number two is that it's the preferred means to manage hunting and fishing shall be the preferred means to manage Colorado's wildlife. There were some additional things that were in statute already that said public safety is a concern that has to be advanced when you're talking about it. You can't use hunting and fishing, obviously, for endangered species. And there was a couple of multipliers there that I think gave people a lot more comfort with the language in a Colorado perspective, just carrying their current statute forward. But at the end of the day, Fred, I think it's a really solid piece of policy that will hopefully gain the 55% that it needs once we get to the ballot. But first, we have to collect the signatures.
Certainly having that wildlife council being one of the two states in the country that has that, as we saw in the last major election cycle in 24, being able to beat back Prop 127, played a huge role in that effort as well. and the population out there, the citizenry saw the value of science-based wildlife management and not managing on emotion alone. Uh, Talk to us about utilizing that tool and going back to the citizenry, um, explaining the benefits of the right to hunt and fish, coupling that with that victory and why they need to get to that 55 plus.
Yeah, again, the Proposition 127, the big cat hunting ban that happened in 2024, and was thankfully defeated out there thanks to Dan and his efforts across the board. Not only him, but multiple organizations jumped in to help. And I think that's kind of was the catalyst for where we are today, right? They see these threats continue to move forward, and it's right on their doorstep with a state like Oregon considering the Peace Act, this ridiculous piece of policy that will literally make it a crime to catch a fish, harvest wild
Mhm.
game, most forms of farming, not to mention taking mice out of your house, right? I mean, that's kind of the the dichotomy of what we're looking at here is on one hand we have the advancement of the right to hunt and fish. On the other hand, we have this radical policy that will make it a crime to hunt and fish. And so I think the people of Colorado are standing up and speaking out and saying we want science-based management to drive our wildlife policies here in Colorado, not ballot box biology like we've seen not only in Colorado but in multiple states across the country. This seems to be their kind of their recipe for success. And I think what we bring to the table is now coming off of the victory that we were able to achieve with incredible groups like yours behind us in Florida. We're bringing that blueprint right to Colorado, and we intend to win.
Yeah, you read my mind. That was right where I wanted to go. The most recent success in that victory there in Florida, with Amendment 2, taking that so fresh and applying that to all of the states truly, it's gotta communicate to the people with any concern, like, "Hey, look, we just did this, and it passed muster there." It's a pretty mixed bag of folks and persuasions in Florida. I don't think it's, generally one way or the other, and just listening to the science-based reasoning on this, it should be pretty easy to get on board with.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of the critical lessons that we learned in Florida. Now moving forward and applying that in these other states as we try and get it done is even if you don't hunt or fish, if you talk about hunting and fishing as science-based wildlife management as a way to humanely manage these species, to bring food back to your community, back to your family, back to your friends, and just honestly protect our outdoor heritage. I think a majority of Americans still believe, even if they don't hunt or fish, that these outdoor pursuits are worth protecting. So it's taking the lessons that we learned and applied successfully in Florida and now moving that on to Colorado, where again, this is the breadbasket of Western hunting, right? Anybody who does this like we do, right? Where I've been to Colorado multiple times hunting and fishing, and I can't think of a better place where they deserve to have a constitutionally protected right to hunt and fish to ensure that those wild lands and those wild animals are managed responsibly and respectfully for the next generation of Coloradoans.
They have such charismatic game and non-game species in that state, and I think anybody, especially east of the Mississippi, when you think of Western hunting, your mind automatically goes to the Rocky Mountain areas, especially of Colorado. You think elk, you think sheep, all of it. And even if you're not buying a hunting license as a citizen in Colorado, if your business is based around ecotourism, going out and wildlife viewing, safari type camera shoots, stuff like that, like this is just as important to those folks who have their living based around healthy herds and healthy flocks. And it certainly makes sense for those people to be involved as part of that 55% plus, and then rallying their friends, which probably fall in that 80% we're always talking about.
For sure. Again, you look at the numbers alone, right? In Florida, we were dealing with the population of 1.3 million anglers and hunters combined in the state of Florida, right? Way more people that fish than hunt. And it's the same actually in Colorado, right? You got 900,000 anglers, you have 300,000 hunters, but you're dealing with a state population that's about 4 million people, 4.5 million people. Florida was 7, 8 million people. So you look at the percentages of the population that are already engaged in the outdoor pursuits, like we're talking about protecting hunting and fishing, you're dealing with a significant percentage of the population in Colorado. And so I think that gives us hope that these people are going to step up and talk to their friends and neighbors, and talk to them about the benefits of hunting and fishing, right? This isn't just about continuing these outdoor traditions. It's about really bringing food back to your community, all of the cultural significance around our sports, and really the benefits economically of what hunting and fishing brings to Colorado. It's a $2.5 billion a year industry that supports 25,000 jobs. So these are all points that we look forward to bringing forward in our campaign out there with Dan and all of the organizations that are involved in the coalition now to try and make Colorado the 25th state to have a constitutionally protected right to hunt and fish and on the books forever.
Yeah, it'll be great. You referenced Maine, the first part of the biennium, and we worked together on that. And unfortunately, things were so toxic up there that I don't think anything and truly nothing got done really in Maine for both sessions. New Hampshire unfortunately fell a bit short. And that's a conversation for another time. But we've had these efforts, and to your point earlier, there's a groundswell, there's an interest in having this. It's a matter of showing the track record on this. I think if you we can get Colorado to be 25, I think a lot of dominoes start falling, and it's just another fresh piece of see here we can do this and we can have reasonable conversations. And I think it's just an easy selling point to that end. Talk about IOTR's part in this. Talk about the organization, why you guys exist for the audience that doesn't understand, and how you and CSF and other in-state partners and other NGOs work together with IOTR support to get this to happen because this isn't just write a letter and tell your legislator we want this.
No, no, I think IOTR has been an organization that's been around since 1975. We rebranded under the leadership of our chairman, Wes Bates, to be much more engaged in the fight, right? The way we talk about it is standing in the arena for our namesake, Teddy Roosevelt's wildlife management system, right? I mean, he's one of the fathers of the North American model that allowed this all of these record numbers of herds and birds and flocks and all of it. And that's what we do, right? And through the leadership of our chairman, we've taken a much more engaged role of trying to get this done in as many states as possible. I think IOTR partnered initially right out of the gate with Jeff and you guys at CSF. And now I'm looking forward to working with Taylor and your whole team to continue the momentum that we built in multiple states. What IOTR brings to the table is, again, I love to hunt and fish. It's what I do, have done my whole life, but I come from a background of politics, grassroots organizing, 20 years of working in, nonprofit space, but in a much different realm. And so what I bring to the table, I think, is learning and knowing how to run a successful citizen engagement campaign from education to activation. We are in the arena educating number one about the benefits of hunting and fishing. And then when it comes time, identifying the right people to go out there and stand with us to forever protect these rights as we move forward in these states. So I look forward to working with you guys in a big way, working with Dan under his leadership in Colorado. What that guy has done out there, again, this he is in a pit of vipers every day,
No
fighting to
doubt.
protect the basic right to hunt and fish. And I look forward now to hopefully having a majority of the citizens, a strong majority of the citizens in Colorado, giving Dan and his team out there another tool in their belt to forever protect the right to hunt and fish.
Yeah, and going back to your line of thought on IP 28 in Oregon. The scary part truly is, and it gives more backbone to why we need to make this happen in all 50 states, is that you have these crazy pockets of crazy people, and it's not even a negotiation. It's let's get the craziest thing we can throw against the wall and see if it sticks, and then negotiate down. But in that case, if it actually gets to the ballot and they actually, if people have a chance to vote, holy smokes! Like it could all blow up right there. And to your point, if it can happen there, it can happen anywhere they can do this with ballot initiatives. Fortunately, that's not the majority of the country, but it's still scary as hell. And when I was a commissioner for the New Hampshire Fish and Game, we would talk about that amongst commissioners. Like some of these people would just come in and say the craziest stuff and then want to negotiate down. It was this really weird thing. And they would engage in it's like, wait, why are we even entertaining any of this? We can say no. Like we don't have to meet them in the middle on any of this because most of it is not science based. And again, you mentioned you can't even take a mouse out of your house. You can't kill a cockroach under that crazy peace act, which is bananas. So again, I'm repeating myself, but I think it's such a huge point to make. Like what's happening in Oregon and other states and Colorado with what they were trying to do this session. And then the previous one with the cats, like that's just a starting point. And if these protections are not in place, everything's up for grabs. To include, and I think it needs to be be thrown in the face of our community. When you say traditional method, so many people think that has a certain connotation working with trappers. That's your archery hunting. That's all of it. These, like you said, Luke, this is what is legal here and now. So if somebody deems that they don't like archery down the line, well, your archery could go too. No one is safe in this, and why the coalition building and everyone coming together under one voice is so important.
Yeah, for sure, Fred. And again, I just think you'd never believe, right, that people could be potentially voting on policy that would make it a crime to catch a fish. This age-old tradition that's been passed down for generations in America. But literally, that's they're 6,000 signatures away from making a ballot in
Mhm.
Oregon. And if you dig a little bit deeper, right, they're openly admitting if they get to the ballot, we're probably not going to win this time, but they will keep coming back again and
Mhm.
again and again and again. And I think that's the clarion call for all of us who love to hunt and fish is we have to match that effort, right? We have to be in this for the long term. We can't allow our guards down and think, oh, everything's great just because we did one thing on a policy perspective. It is literally eternal vigilance to keep these outdoor traditions moving on and making sure that they get passed on to the next generation of Americans.
100%. Luke, what has been, if I can put it this way, like the average concern, if you can put it, like what's been the most consistent thing when we're engaging in this from your end that you're hearing either from policymakers or from constituencies alone with our efforts on this?
Well, I think even legislators, right, who hunt and fish. What do you mean we don't have a constitutionally protected right to hunt and fish? I'm sure you've heard it too, Fred. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like this assumption that because we have a Second Amendment, well, that has to include hunting and fishing. But we know the reality that it doesn't, right? The founders left that up to the states to determine it.
Mm.
And I think it was a perfect vision. This isn't something that's just come about in the last few years. IOTR didn't come up with the idea for a constitutionally protected right. That was done in 1777 by Vermont, of all places, right?
That's
Vermont was the
exactly
first
right.
state to have it. And so I think it's number one, just the education process that there's 24 states now that have this. It provides a level of protection that a policy, right, a statute doesn't provide because it has the backing of the people. And
Mhm.
now having sued actually four times now on behalf of IOTR and other hunting organizations that I was a part of before, I see the power of this, right? You have the opportunity as an individual citizen when your right to hunt or fish is infringed, right? Somebody violates that right, you have the opportunity to stand in court and make your case that you can't take that away from me. And thankfully, for four successful times now, we have fought in the court of law and established case law, which is the next most important thing. Is why
Mhm.
does this all matter, right? It's not just enough to have a constitutionally protected right to hunt and fish. You have to go to court and establish case law that is then used on additional threats that come. Right. In the example of Florida, we passed it there with 67% of the vote. 67% of the vote. Nearly 7
Huge.
million people voted yes on this thing. But then immediately, within literally within weeks of that happening, there was an anti-hunting group that came into Florida and tried to stop their bear hunt from moving forward.
Mhm.
FWC said we're following the science, the biology makes sense. We're going to open up a bear hunt. There was a group that came in, put in a bunch of money, and tried to stop them from having their bear hunt in the courts. We filed an amicus brief. I think you guys were a part of those efforts as well, and said, no, you can't. You can't do that. There's a constitutionally protected right to hunt and move forward in that case. The judge saw it in our view and threw their case out and established case law now in the state of Florida that says any additional threats that come against any form of hunting that is legally allowed has to be determined by the constitutionally protected right to hunt. So that's it. I mean, that's it in a nutshell, right? Education, number one, and then going and actually doing the work of establishing the case law that can be, throughout the test of time, something that protects our right to get to the outdoors and do what we love to do.
Luke, you guys are doing just such important work at IOTR, and then you couple that with the partnership here with the CSF and other folks in the space. But I when I go to a state capitol and I see IOTR there standing alongside, whether it's Kenya, whether it's Travis or anybody else, or I have a conversation with Dan, um, it's a nice shoulder to shoulder stance, even if it's only a couple of us, because it represents two very strong organizations that have a track record of putting this stuff on the ground and having success and having reasonable conversations with the evidence and the data to back all of it up. So forces combined, it's powerful, and we got a lot of work ahead of us, and certainly we look forward to working together and the coalition building in Colorado, and let's bring this one home.
Amen, man. Can't thank you guys enough. CSF and you, Fred and Jeff, and the entire team there. You guys have been incredible partners. And again, it takes courage to do what we do, right? I mean, this is really being on offense for the first time in a long time. And I think that's what IOTR and CSF and the rest of our organizations that are part of our coalition realize is it's not just enough to keep playing whack-a-mole and knocking down these threats as they come. We've got to get on offense, and we have a story to tell. And thankfully, even if you don't fish or hunt in America, you still see the value of people going to the outdoors, participating in these age-old traditions, and sharing that heritage with the next generation.
Perfectly put. I think we'll leave it there. No need to continue to add more to it. I think that's exactly what needs to be said. Luke, I really appreciate the time, and again, thank you for your leadership, and look forward to standing in the trenches with IOTR.
Likewise, Fred. Appreciate it, my friend.
Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.